Why is it that when black and Hispanic people talk about the oppression that they suffered from Europeans, our people say that we have a victim mentality? The Jewish people can talk about Hitler and how they suffered a Holocaust in Germany, and nobody says that they have a victim mentality. The Ukrainians can talk about how Russia is oppressing them, and nobody points out how they have a victim mentality. But when black and Hispanic people talk about the greatest crimes to ever happen to a people on the face of the earth, we get told that we should let the past be the past. We're not even allowed to bring it up without being hated. And you know why they tell us we got a victim mentality? Because really they know that America was built off the blood, sweat, and tears of black and Hispanic people. And they know that they reap the benefits of our hard labor, and they feel guilty because of that. So because of that, we are not allowed to be victims. We got to get over it.
How do you fix your lips to accuse someone of playing victim when talking about slavery and its consequences? And that's not even the worst of it. Like, people keep trying to belittle the slavery experience of the United States by saying, well, slavery existed everywhere. Yes, it did. Water is wet, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to talk about our experience here as the descendants of slaves. Y'all don't really care about other groups that have been enslaved. Y'all only bring it up when y'all trying to shut us up when we talk about slavery here. By calling us victims or pointing out how slavery existed everywhere, you're doing nothing but invalidating the feelings of people who are still suffering from the repercussions in the United States. And you're doing nothing but proving the point of my original video. When we talk about the atrocity our community experienced, y'all act annoyed, frustrated, and try to shut us up. And it's because y'all feel guilty. Or people keep saying, why do we focus on color so much? Because y'all focus on our color so much.
I was having a conversation with an old conservative friend of mine that I used to have. We no longer talk. And it was about the erasure of the teaching of slavery in school. And he said he wholeheartedly supported them no longer teaching about slavery in school because he doesn't want his daughter to have to grow up feeling guilty about something that she never did. He supports erasing history, essentially, because he doesn't want his child to feel guilt because of the crimes of their ancestors. If you were wondering why, I'm sure you can kind of see why we're not friends anymore. And the whole thing is, your daughter wouldn't have to feel guilt if your parents, their parents, hell, if even you had worked on doing something, you and your peers worked on doing something to try to correct the wrongs that were done in the past. This is not me saying that there have not been things done to make life better for my people, but also if those things still don't outweigh the things that were done in the past, to a degree where you think that your child simply knowing what was done in the past is going to create a level of guilt that you are not comfortable with them having, them learning the history is not the problem here.
Hello and what's up, good people? Welcome back to the channel, and I hope you're doing great from wherever you're watching this video from today. And welcome for this video. Now, shall we just a little bit talk about this issue of victim mentality? Because lately I've been coming across a lot of videos actually trying to describe some instances in which Black people are coming out to speak their hearts as playing victim. And maybe we need to a little bit understand what victim mentality in itself is all about before we even point out or point fingers at people who have something genuine to talk about and call them, victims or playing victim. Now, a lot of atrocities have actually been committed to Black people in the history of humanity. We're talking about atrocities like numerous genocides, colonization, slavery, discrimination, Jim Crow, apartheid. All those are real, actual atrocities that were committed to Black people. And Black people have been talking about this for as long as they have existed, because it is lived reality. But then you find out some people come out to point out and say you're playing victim, to an extent that even some Black people have also started buying the narrative of thinking that they are actually playing victim. Now, let's watch these videos that I have compiled for you. And at the end of this, I'll give you my own analysis to this.
You would not have to feel white guilt if y'all would fix what you did. You meaning your ancestors. If white people collectively would sit down and try to at least try to reverse the centuries and centuries and centuries of colonialism, bigotry, and racism, you would not have to feel guilty anymore. Problem solved. Because that's really why we're in this mess to begin with. Because a selective group of white people cannot bear to feel guilty anymore. They cannot feel the white guilt. They can't handle the white guilt. You aren't your ancestors, but you are burdened with the responsibility to fix what they did. But of course, that would mean having to share your spot at the top with everyone else, which again is not acceptable because y'all haven't known anything else. Because y'all keep running from history instead of facing it, we will continue to ride this oppression roller coaster until y'all become the minority. Because it is inevitable. It will happen. Desperately trying to ignore centuries of colonialism, bigotry, and racism isn't going to just make it go away. I don't care how many immigrants you try to deport. I don't care how many black people you try to kick out of your jobs and schools. I don't care how many Black History Months you try to cancel. White supremacy is not sustainable. It's not going to last forever. Y'all are already the global minority. Okay? I'll end this video saying this. The entire world sees how desperate you are to get rid of anything that is not straight and white. And it's not because you are strong. It's because you are weak. Extremely weak. Like I said in a video before, without minorities, this country would be the weakest it has ever been. Y'all will not win this race.
It's not the role of black people to be fighting racism. Now, I don't mean that in the white saviour sense. I mean that in the sense that it's not the responsibility of anyone from any oppressed group to be fighting and educating on the discrimination that they're faced with. Women cannot fight sexism without men standing up and fighting the battle too, because men are largely the ones that are perpetrators of it. Disabled people cannot fight ableism on their own. We need able-bodied people to be fighting the battle for us too, because they are the ones that largely hold the power and the privilege. Black people shouldn't be expected to be doing the anti-racism work, especially given that it causes them to relive trauma, and it can also put you at risk of further abuse and further situations that can cause more trauma. Yes, as a white woman, I feel a huge responsibility because white people are the people that are largely responsible for it, and we hold a huge amount of privilege. A lot of white people, particularly white people that have black friends, black partners, that are happy to celebrate the culture, that are happy to appropriate the culture, which is so wrong, but they're not happy to support the people in which that culture comes from and originates from. It really irks me when I see white people that will listen to bashment or listen to Afrobeats, that will eat black food, they'll eat their jollof, they'll eat their yard food, they'll go to carnival, but they're quiet on issues that affect black people. Yes, as a white woman that has embraced that culture through growing up around black people, having a black partner, having black friends, yes, I will stand up and I will make my voice heard on these issues because it is my responsibility morally and ethically to do so. I'm really lucky that I've got black people in my life whose voices I've listened to, whose experiences I've listened to, and I've educated myself. I've never relied on them or expected them to educate me. I've done that work and I will continue to do that work because it's important that I show up for them and the wider community. If we only care about the issues that directly impact us and we only speak about those issues, we're never going to make a change in the world. We have to start showing up for people that are from communities that we're not a part of. I acknowledge that I probably feel more confident speaking on this because of the relationships I have, because of the experiences that I have, and that's why it's so important that I use my voice, be it online, be it in the workplace, be it through other forms of activism that I do. I'm going to have children one day, well, hopefully, God willing, and it's really important for me that I show my children that I have advocated for them, that I've stood up for them, that I've used my voice, and so that I can also educate them on their history, you know, things that impact them, especially things like colorism, you know, because my children are going to be mixed race and therefore they're going to have more privilege than darker skinned black people, and I never ever want to hear or know that they've perpetuated colorism. So it's really something that's important to me. Anyone that knows me will know these are things that I have always spoken up on. They're things that I spoke up on in school, in university, that I speak up on in the workplace and wider society at large. I do a lot of activism, a lot of political work, and I constantly ensure that I use the power and privilege that I have to draw attention to these issues. And it shouldn't just be the white people that have black partners or black friends or grew up around black people that speak up about these issues. Everyone should be speaking up about these issues or issues that affect other marginalised groups, because as I said at the start of the video, it is not the responsibility of black people to be doing the emotional and mental labour of fighting racism when they are largely not the ones that are perpetrating it.
The US population is 334 million people. 260 million of those are white. That's 78% of the population. Before colonisation, there was an estimated 15 million Native Americans on Turtle Island. That figure is now 7 million. 400,000 people were forcibly brought to America during the transatlantic slave trade. Their descendants now number over 48 million. Firstly, the Americans, the real Americans, the Native Americans, were genocide at the same scale as the Irish were during the famine. Same scale, half the population gone, 15 down to 7. In Ireland it was 8 down to 4. White people, settlers, colonisers became the dominant population in America. Native people were nearly eradicated, confined to reservations, reduced and isolated and forced into very strange boarding schools that required their own video. The white people who left Britain to go to America were not okay, and the things that they did to the people that they found there were not okay. The majority of these white settlers arrived between the 17th and the 20th century. This was not a population surge, but a strategically backed intentional settler colonial project encouraged by private capital. The US government offered not only citizenship but land to European settlers that went out there. White population growth outpaces these other groups, not just because white people had more babies, but because they had higher survival rates, still do, higher access to healthcare, education, money off the land, while enforced segregation made sure that the same quality of life could not be afforded to black or brown people or natives. What happened to the Native Americans meets the UN Convention on Genocide standards. Settler colonialism doesn't rely on just killing everybody. It's replacement theory. The settler state depends on the ongoing reproduction of the settler class, and the white, nuclear, perfect little American family with their picket fence is a core mechanism of American government state power maintenance. This video is addressed at liberal white American women who read about social justice, donate to causes, march for Palestine, but you still imagine that having children is just a personal decision. That's private between you and your partner. To reproduce whiteness in this country is to participate in genocide. You are repeating it, not through violence, but through inheritance. You cannot separate your fertility from the system that holds it. Refusal is the first ethical act. Refuse to reproduce the settler fantasy. Refuse to keep passing the same power forward. You have to stop pretending that your family is neutral. You have to stop pretending that your child is just your child. In this system, your child is a carrier of settler legacy, a beneficiary of violence, unless you choose to make them something else. That choice sits with you, and it's do or die. Stop pretending that white America is normal, or that this life is innocent. The population structure of the United States today is built atop destroyed nations, stolen children, sterilized women, and a legal system designed to protect the white family, to continue unconsidered, unexamined reproduction. In that system is not passive. You are actively participating in colonialism. Reproductive refusal is a form of ethical resistance to late-stage capitalism. But this is not a call to antinatalism. It is a call to break the cycle of reproduction as erasure. Many settler descendants seek spiritual meaning, whether through God or otherwise, without acknowledging or confronting the material structures that you live inside. Without truth, reflection, repentance, restitution, your spiritual claims are empty. Continuing in 2025 to just do the suburban thing while ignoring genocide is not morally neutral. You're participating in systemic violence. This is not a blanket condemnation to motherhood or a denial of your worthiness to real human love and care. I am asking you to confront the reality that white liberalism is decoration for the most oppressive system the world has ever seen. And it is white liberal women who uphold and maintain both the patriarchy and capitalism.
The most important black person in the world right now is Ibrahim Traoré, very small country in West Africa. Why is he the most important black person in the world right now? You ever wonder why Africa as a continent has been so fucked up for so long? Well, this is not debatable. This is a historical fact. They colonize the country, right? As colonizing the country, they have rights to all of the natural resources. They pretty much have all of the power in the country. Then when they leave and they get their quote unquote independence, they make them sign treaties, which actually still reverts all their natural resources back to their home country, mainly France.
Let's call it what it is. It's extortion.
Exactly. For pennies. You should read the book Economic Hitman if you haven't read it. Confessions of the Economic Hitman. This is why leadership is important and government is important. When you have a leader that steps up and says, no, this isn't right. We want change. We want self-determination. We want to control our natural resources, like Kwame Nkrumah, the founder of Ghana. The CIA comes and coordinates his exile and runs him out the country. He eventually dies. Or you have Patricia Lumumba in Congo, who was killed. Who do you think orchestrated his killing? And this isn't, in my opinion, this is a historical fact. This is no emotions. Yep. That's why I'm taking my time with this, right? So what they do is that they come and they give you an option. And they say, okay, you can sell out your country and give us the natural resources for cheap, and we'll make you very wealthy, you and your family.
In perpetuity. Back to that.
Now, if you refuse this, then we'll kill you. And some people have refused it and they got killed. And then the people that take their positions are corrupt leadership propped up by the West, and they don't care about their people. They don't care about their natural resources. They sell it. They let them come rob, and it's good for business because they can get it for dollars on the cheap. They can get copper or gold, oil, you name it. And this cycle has continued since they got their quote unquote independence. And it's been a system that has continuously kept Africa in poverty on purpose, done by the Western governments, Europe and America. Now, you have a leader like Ibrahim Traoré who takes power from a military coup from a corrupt leader that was already in power, kicks France out of the country, then it becomes a domino effect. Then Mali follows suit. Then you have all of these other countries in West Africa that was colonies of France, kicking the French out, taking control of the natural resources, paying off their debt. Well, that's dangerous. If that's a model that can be followed and duplicated, now you no longer have this economic oppression that these countries are over. Now they can actually start to move forward. But we saw somebody else try to do this before and he didn't last. So when you say things like a victim mindset or stop blaming people, it's really an ignorant thing to say because you're not providing any historical context when you're saying you're a victim, stop blaming people. You're not. And it's the same thing that could be said in America. Okay, black people were slaves in America and then built up wealth in a very short period of time and had the wealth stolen from them. The Freedmen's Bank, we actually went to DC. They gave us the full education. It's actually in the law libraries if you really want to read it. This is theft. What broken promises that was never kept, right? Then you go through redlining. These are historical facts. This is legal. This is legal discrimination that took place that built the ghettos in the United States of America. This is not my theory. This is a fact. Then you start to look at the Iran-Contra scandal when the CIA and FBI flooded black neighborhoods with cocaine in the 80s. This is not just some shit that's on TV. That's an actual fact. This actually happened. You can look it up. So there's a reason for the drug epidemic that happened in the 1980s and 90s and put so many people in jail. Then you have Joe Biden who signed the 94 crime bill and mass incarceration starts. So when you say things like it's a victim mindset, get over it. Are you a victim if you get shot in your face?
And yes, no other group of people are told to forget the atrocities that happened to them except us.
I've come to a conclusion that white people, the majority living here in this part of the world, will never admit they're wrong, will never admit what's happened in the past, what's currently happening, and what is more likely to happen in the future. They're very triggered. They become personal. They become diversive. It then becomes all about them. It doesn't surprise me because for some reason they are very blinded when it comes to the issues that black people face in this country. And the easiest thing for them to say is, well, if you're not happy, go back to your country. What do you mean? There are people who are black, who are born here and have equal rights just like you. So I'm not sure what you mean by go back to your country. Is that some sort of escapism? If you really care about me, you'll be sitting down having open conversations with me without being personal. And I think I have said this before. I'm not sure where this narrative about white people being the most smartest has come about, because there are lots of unintelligent white people. Of course, there are lots of unintelligent people in every race. But this idea, or this narrative that's been sold, that a group of people are more intelligent because of the color of the skin, is absolutely ridiculous. Go through my comments and see the sort of comments that I get. The majority of them, I don't delete them, because it's really an example of what I speak of every day. You don't need to go far. You want to know what an average white person thinks about a black person, a foreigner, an illegal migrant, or an immigrant. Go on my comment section and have a read through them. I've had to acknowledge the fact that we're never going to get anywhere because the individuals in question are not even prepared to self-reflect. And so they divert the conversations. They talk about you personally. They abuse you. They talk about them. And it's just a confirmation of what a lot of black people say and think. And the idea that you think that because I talk about these issues means that I don't have a life, and you say, well, get on with your life. Of course I've got on with my life. But in getting on with my life, I've had to learn how to outsmart you. I've had to learn not to allow you affect me. Of course I've gotten on with my life. I've had to realize that I have to do what I need to do for myself in order for me not to be at your mercy. And you don't like that either. It's not going to change. I'm sorry, guys. It's not going to change. When you read the comment section and you watch the video, you would get the answer. And people wonder why decades and decades have gone past and nothing has changed. No, it wouldn't. Because the perpetrators are not even prepared to accept liability. You can't pay off a debt if you don't accept liability. You can't. Because you're even willing to accept that you have done wrong and continue to do wrong. It's evident in today's society, isn't it? Who remembers the penalties? Saki and Marcus and the other guy. Who remembers? Is that also made up? Because for some reason they say that we're making things up. Whenever you bring up a conversation, they say it's made up. It's all in our heads. So was that made up then? Because that was live football. I watched it. But I guarantee you, if those boys had scored, it would have been a different experience. So in other words, the conclusion is when you are used, you are very important, and skin color doesn't matter. At the moment that these particular people, and it goes back to slavery, because when you think about it, we've been used for decades. That's what we're seen as. So when you're used, you're welcome to come in. When we had COVID, the carers from Nigeria and all the other African countries were allowed to come in because they needed them. The moment they didn't need them, they got rid of the open door policy or whatever it was, visa applications that they were able to do then. They got rid of it. And I remember having a conversation with this white gentleman, and he said, well, we don't need them here anymore, so we've been able to get the benefits from them and they have to go. Isn't that a slave master mentality?
Do white people pretend not to know and understand, or do they really genuinely believe that they are not complicit and or benefiting from past and present practices of racism? They really can't see it? Growing up as a white person in a hyper-individualistic society that was constructed as a racial caste system, you really have no concept of this idea that you are complicit or benefit from systemic racism. And it's not just socially and politically fortified, it's also deeply ingrained in our education system and in our religious practices and theology. See, I grew up in the 80s and 90s essentially being taught that Martin Luther King Jr. ended racism. And you cannot underestimate the significance of growing up in church and learning that your personal Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, forgave you for your individual sins so that you could go to heaven when you die. So not only is racism dead, but you're only responsible for your individual sins, which are basically disobeying your parents, fighting with your siblings, or swearing on occasion. Nowhere in the framework of growing up white in the United States do we have a conversation about complicity or benefiting from the racial caste system. So when we get older and we start to hear it, that immediate defensiveness kicks in because we feel accused as though we are personally responsible for all of the racism that's happened in the United States. Now, to be clear, this is not to provide excuses for anybody, but I'm confident that the vast majority of white folks that grow up in this country have no concept of the systems that are alive here. And that, among many other reasons, is why it's so important that we deconstruct whiteness and Christianity.
Oh, this is actually a pretty easy one to answer. We don't like to admit what our ancestors did or be connected to them at all, because then we'd have to do something about it. And it's such an interesting thing because growing up as a white person in America, one of the things that you internalize as a truth is that racism is just about the worst thing there is. So to be called a racist or a white supremacist is akin to being the most evil person in the world. So I understand this from my own experience of deconstructing whiteness, and I see it all the time with other white folks who have yet to embrace the reality that to grow up in the United States as a white-bodied individual means that you have inherited white supremacy as a part of the way that you view the world. Which is why one of the first reactions and defenses that you will hear from white-bodied individuals is, how can you ascribe a negative character trait to a whole group of people and say that people are evil just because of the color of their skin? So instead of seeing white supremacist ideology as an inherited worldview, it is viewed as a negative moral characteristic that all white people have. Apart from the irony that this is exactly what our European ancestors did to black and brown indigenous people of color, that is not at all what's being conveyed when we talk about deconstructing whiteness or healing from racism. Is it a disease? Yes. Does it perpetuate harm? Absolutely. But does it mean that you are more evil or bad than any other person of any other race in the world? No. It simply means that this is what's been passed down to us. And we get to decide whether we like that or not. So if you don't like racism, maybe when you hear these conversations, spend a little more time listening than you do being defensive. Because I promise you, if you listen long enough, you will not hear people saying you're evil because you're a white-bodied individual. You're simply being asked to notice it and to dismantle white supremacy culture.
White people need to talk more about race with their family and community. I know that this sounds counterintuitive because your feed is probably filled with white people talking about race when it is obviously an issue that affects people of color, but the problem is that it's perpetuated in white families in ways that they do not realize. I am trying to call out the racism that is either explicit or implicit among white circles. People act racist a lot of the time behind closed doors, which is something that I, as a white person, see a lot. It doesn't matter if I'm in Chicago, if I'm in rural California, if I'm in rural places, generally speaking, white people are racist in the US. And sometimes in ways that they don't even realize. So my goal with my content is to see this, to report on it, to encourage white people to evaluate critically what that means. Although it might seem like I'm trying to take away voices of people of color, I'm not trying to speak on the effects of racism or anything like that. I'm trying to talk about how it's systemic and encourage other white people to evaluate their biases, because I understand this because of the environment I was raised in, which is very conservative.
Racism, as we know it today, is a construct. It didn't always exist in the way that we think of it now. It was developed to justify one thing: power. During European colonial expansion from the 15th century onward, white European powers needed an excuse to justify things like slavery, genocide, expansion, extraction, land theft, and exploitation. So they created a hierarchy: white at the top, everyone else below. This was then written into science, law, education, and obviously religion. It was then used to justify slavery, genocides, and the building of empires on stolen land. So that's what I mean when I say white people built the system. It doesn't mean that white people are responsible for what happened 400 years ago, but it does mean the system was built to benefit whiteness. And that benefit is still showing up strong in who gets access, who gets protected, and who gets punished. So if white people built the system, we white people certainly have a role to play in dismantling it. That's not blame, it's accountability and responsibility. I'm the anti-racist mum, and if you're ready to unlearn your social conditioning, hit the link in my bio for low-cost resources that will help you do just that. And keep following me for more uncomfortable truths.
When white people in the United States balk at the idea of paying reparations to Black Americans who descended from slaves, they disagree with the Bible. To begin with, let's first define what reparations mean. Reparations are a form of compensation or restitution made to those who have suffered injustice, specifically in cases of racial inequality, discrimination, and slavery. The idea of paying reparations to Black Americans is not a new one. It has been a topic of discussion for decades, if not centuries. However, it has gained renewed attention and support in recent years. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. also advocated for reparations in the form of economic advancement for Black Americans. As a Christian, I believe that reparations are not only a matter of justice and equality, but also a reflection of God's character. In the Bible, we see numerous examples of God's concern for the oppressed, the marginalized, and the downtrodden. From the Israelites' liberation from slavery in Egypt to Jesus' ministry among the poor and the outcast, we see a consistent theme of God's love for those who are on the margins of society. One of the key biblical principles that underlie the idea of reparations is the concept of restitution. In the book of Leviticus, we see God commanding the Israelites to make restitution to those whom they have wronged. Leviticus chapter 6 says that if anyone sins and commits a breach of faith against the Lord by deceiving his neighbor in a matter of deposit or security or through robbery, or if he has oppressed his neighbor or found something lost and lied about it, swearing falsely, he shall restore it in full and shall add a fifth to it and give it to him to whom it belongs. This passage emphasizes the importance of making restitution to those who have been wronged, and not just restoring what has been taken, but adding to it as a form of compensation. This principle of restitution can be applied to the issue of reparations to Black Americans who have suffered centuries of enslavement, discrimination, and systemic oppression. Another biblical principle that supports the idea of reparations is the concept of Jubilee. In Leviticus chapter 25, God commands to the Israelites to observe a Jubilee. This was a radical idea of economic justice designed to prevent the accumulation of wealth and power in the hands of a few and to ensure that all members of society had equal access to resources and opportunities. The idea of Jubilee can be seen as a model for reparations in that it seeks to address the root causes of inequality and oppression rather than just treating the symptoms. By forgiving debts, freeing slaves, and returning property, Jubilee seeks to create a more just and equitable society, one in which everyone has the opportunity to flourish. As a Christian, I believe that paying reparations to Black Americans is not only a matter of justice and equity, but also a reflection of God's character and values. Through the biblical principles of restitution and Jubilee, we see a model for how we can address the historical and systemic injustices that have plagued our society for far too long. While the issue of reparations is complex and contentious, I believe that as Christians, we have a responsibility to seek justice. The Black community has long suffered under the weight of systemic racism and discrimination. As white people, it is our responsibility to use our privilege to support and uplift the Black community. Here are a few ways that we can be better allies. Listen and learn. We need to listen to Black voices and experiences without interrupting or dismissing them. We should educate ourselves on the history of systemic racism and the ways that it continues to impact the Black community today. We should seek out resources, books, and documentaries that help us understand the issues. Next, speak up. We should use our privilege to speak up against racism and discrimination. We should challenge racist comments and behaviors, even if it's uncomfortable. Silence that which perpetuates racism. We should support Black-owned businesses in our communities. We should advocate for policies that support economic justice and equity. Donate to Black-led organizations. Financially support Black-led organizations that are working to address systemic racism and inequality. It can be done through regular contributions or contributing to certain campaigns and initiatives. We should also use our platforms for good as white people. We have access to platforms and audiences that the Black community may not have. We should use our platforms to amplify Black voices and perspectives, raise awareness about issues affecting the Black community, and promote positive change. Be open to feedback and learning from our mistakes, as we will make mistakes along the way. But it's important to acknowledge them, apologize, and learn from them. We should be open to feedback and willing to change our behavior and perspectives as we continue to learn and grow. Being a better ally to the Black community requires a willingness to listen, learn, and take action. It requires us to use our privilege for good, support Black-owned businesses and communities, and speak up against racism and discrimination. It's up to all of us to work towards a more just and equitable society. And being a better ally is an important step.
Man, I tell you what, nothing makes racist white people more pissed off than me, a white person, trying to educate about racism and trying to educate about what white privilege is and all these things. And it's so funny because these same people will argue with me till they are blue in the face about how they're not racist and we don't live in a racist institution and Black and brown people have it so easy and racism doesn't exist anymore. But then they will turn around and say the most racist, ignorant, vile shit you've ever heard in your life. The disconnect is amazing. And this is why I make content like this, because it's so important, because we do live in a racist institution and we are all raised in racism as white people. This is simply a fact. And the crazy part about it is every one of us knows this. Even the ones who will sit there and fight with me to the death about it and act like it doesn't exist. Y'all know white people are racist. Y'all know about the casual racism, the casual microaggressions that we are raised in, no matter where we live in this United States of America. And this is why I will never stop. I will never stop trying to educate as a white person about racism and how we need to learn. We need to evolve. We need to do better. It's almost as if they feel like admitting to a racist institution or admitting to racism makes them this evil, terrible person. And so they would rather double down than to grow and be a good person. And that's so bad, because all that says to me is that you have a small mind and a cowardly soul. And I wish better for you than that, truly, because everything in your life will get better when you stop being so ignorant.
Okay, now you have listened to those videos and I believe we have learned something from the same. Now, I don't particularly want to agree with this blame game or pointing out at Black people for them speaking out and calling them victims. Oh, no, accusing them of playing victims for decrying the status quo or for just coming out, being brave enough to say, this happened to us, this and this are the historical injustices that have been committed to us and that nobody has ever addressed. Now, we Black people keep speaking about these atrocities because nobody has actually historically come out to address these instances. Now, but recently, you have actually also witnessed that there are many white folks that are also now coming out to denounce systems from which they benefited from that actually they used to oppress black people and people of color. It simply, tells you that there is something that needs to be done. And even though black people have spoken about this for ages, nobody has really listened. But now when we have the people that have actually been the ones oppressing black people, or if not oppressing directly, but benefiting from the same, coming out to speak about that, then I don't know what else we need to, as a confirmation to that this actually happened in history. Now, it's dangerous when people cry because of things that were done to them, but you try to silence them. Silencing them is actually an oppression on its own. Now, this is actually what happens. There is shifting blame. These people that actually do this are trying to shift blame from the oppressors, from those people who committed the atrocities, to the people, the victims, the people that were oppressed. And now you want to make them look like they are just whining, they're just crying over nothing. So that's a shift of blame from the oppressor to the oppressed. Now, what about, we also talk about gaslighting lived experiences. When I talk about slavery, when I talk about systemic racial discrimination, when we talk about apartheid, when we talk about colonization of black people in Africa, these are lived experiences. And if you are always telling these people or making it look like they didn't happen, then you're actually oppressing them further. So gaslighting happens in a way that when you keep telling them that they're crying instead of making things work, is you're actually trying to make them look like the experiences of their past, the lived experiences of these people are actually, or did not actually take place, which is actually very wrong as well. Now, silencing the truth. We are silencing the truth. Nothing has been done actually, but that we can say has actually been done by the oppressor to make things right. What have they done? Other than people who have realized the truth that this system of lies is about to crash and crumble, other than them coming out in their own consciousness to speak against their own systems of white supremacy, what particularly has the white supremacist, has Europe or America done, to repay black people in the atrocities? No reparations. In fact, let's not talk about reparations. There is not even proper apologies. So the moment people who are speaking about what was done to them, lived experiences, are met with pointing fingers and telling them you're playing victim, you're trying to silence the truth so that you're not held accountable for what you have done, for the systems you have created, that you have benefited from, that have undermined the livelihood of other people. Okay, now the fourth point is protecting the status quo. See, what is happening is there is a great awakening across black people and worldwide. This is what happened. These were the atrocities that are committed to black people, and we cannot accept. And the systems of this of white supremacy must come down, crashing and crumbling. But now, when you're fighting against people that are coming out to speak the truth, what you're trying to do is actually, you don't want them to speak so you can retain the status quo. So retention of status quo happens in a way that you don't want people to speak the truth. So you don't want to get challenged, so that the systems, the false systems you have created for your own benefit, are not challenged. Yeah. And then my fifth point to this is twisting resilience into weakness. one of the best qualities of Black people is resilience, a quality that Black people have, and maybe they own this than anybody else. Now, these people have been resilient through all that you have committed to them. You even try to wipe them out, but they have lived through that to see this day and this time and age. Now, they're talking truth to power. They're saying this is what happened to us, and this is what is happening to us. It's not about things that happened in the past. There are things that continue to happen. Discrimination and racism are happening. Neocolonialism is happening today as we speak in this particular time. These things are happening. And when these people speak about this, it's because we want things to change. We want to upset the status quo that has oppressed us. But now you want to twist our resilience, our fighting spirit that has seen us come to this place and make it look like a weakness of some sort. It's nothing but a tactic of the oppressors. This is what oppressors usually do. They gaslight you. They turn your strength into weaknesses, and they call you names. And what is sad about this scenario that's happening today of describing Black people that are speaking the truth as playing victims is the fact that Black people have also now have started getting brainwashed to a point in which they are accepting that they are playing victim. They are accepting, some of them are actually even denouncing their Blackness, sadly. Some of them are actually saying the transatlantic slave trade did not happen. This is very serious, and this is actually very sad, even for us as Black people. If we get to a point in which we as Africans say we were never colonized, when the whole history has been there, when all evidence is there, when Black people in America are made to start questioning if the transatlantic slave trade really happened, is we have lost it as Black people as well. So we must not accept. We must not be derailed in the path. We must continue to speak. Most importantly, we must go ahead and speak and never be dissuaded to think that we are playing victim. They happened. We are saying reparations to Black people. We are saying apologies to Black people. We are saying racial equity, racial justice. We are saying no to modern day slavery, no to neocolonialism. We are just saying no to mass incarcerations of Black people. We are saying Europe and America must return artifacts to Africa that they have stolen. If we say that and people call us people that are whining, you see who is the oppressor. You, in fact, know who is actually whining in this case. But we must upset the status quo. So I rally all Black people across the world, in Africa, in the Caribbean, in America, in Europe, to continue the fight, to not get dissuaded, to not get derailed at any point, to not buy this story of the oppressor to make you look like you are not oppressed. You are not getting oppressed. Yeah, so we must keep on the fight, keep up the spirit, and stand together most importantly. Yeah. So I don't know what you think about what we have discussed today, what we've heard from those brothers and sisters in those videos. Do share with me what you think in the comment section below. And if you have loved this video, please give it a thumbs up, and you can as well share it. And for those that have not subscribed to the channel, I am humbly requesting that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel to be part of us. So until next time, I'll see you in the next video.